The holographic display in the Coalition Command Center casts an eerie blue glow across Admiral Keffar's scale features. His 4 eyes tracked the tactical readout with predatory satisfaction as dozens of red markers converged on the Sol system. Each marker represented a battle group capable of sterilizing entire worlds. The humans still believe this is a negotiation, Commander ZYX-Area reported, her insectoid mandibles clicking with amusement. Their primitive vessels are maintaining defensive positions around their third planet. No signs of evacuation. Keffar's tail lashed behind him, a gesture of barely contained excitement. For 300 years, the Galactic Coalition had tolerated humanity's expansion into 14 systems. Their ships were laughably outdated, their weapons primitive fusion-based projectiles, their diplomatic efforts pathetically desperate. The humans reminded him of scavengers picking through the remains of a feast they were never invited to join. Intelligence reports confirm their largest vessels are those antiquated dreadnoughts they call Titan-class, ZYX-Area continued. Approximately 800 meters in length, armed with nuclear warheads and kinetic penetrators. Our smallest frigates could disable them with ease. The Vorthak Admiral nodded, savoring the moment. His species had conquered 4 to 7 star systems through superior firepower and ruthless efficiency. The humans, with their emotional decision-making and primitive technology, represented everything the galaxy had evolved beyond. Begin the final approach, Keffar commanded. Open a channel to Earth Defense Coordinator. Let them witness what happens to species that refuse to acknowledge their place in the natural order. The transmission connected instantly. A middle-aged human woman appeared on screen, her face drawn with exhaustion but her eyes sharp with defiance. Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force looked directly into the camera, and Keffar felt a flicker of surprise at the intensity of her gaze. Admiral Chen, he began, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Your species has exactly 1 hour to evacuate your military vessel from the Sol system. Any ship remaining will be considered hostile and destroyed. This is not a negotiation. Chen's expression never wavered. With respect, Admiral Keffar, we've heard your ultimatums before. Our answer remains the same. Humanity will not abandon our home. Then you will share the fate of the Kepler Republic and the Centauri Federation, Keffar replied coldly. Both human colonies had been eliminated 6 months earlier when they refused coalition authority. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against true military power. Primitive. Chen's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Admiral, you've been watching our outer colonies and border patrol vessels for 3 centuries. You've never seen what humanity builds when we're truly afraid. Keffar's scales rippled with irritation. Human bravado in the face of extinction was both tiresome and pointless. Fear is irrelevant when facing superior technology. Your largest vessels are outgunned by our escort fighters. You're absolutely right about one thing, Chen said quietly. You've never seen our largest vessels. Before Keffar could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the Coalition fleet. Every sensor operator was shouting simultaneously as something massive emerged from behind Earth's moon. The object was so large that the tactical computers initially classified it as a space station or asteroid base. Commander ZYX-Array's voice cracked with disbelief. Admiral, we're reading a ship's signature, length 4,000 meters, mass equivalent to a small moon. The vessel that slid into view defied everything the Coalition believed about human engineering. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing sensor scans like a hungry void. Strange energy patterns danced along its surface, technologies that shouldn't exist in human hands. Weapon ports the size of subway tunnels lined its flanks, and it bow curved forward like the head of some ancient predator. This is Admiral Chen aboard the Terran Confederate ship Tempest, came the transmission, but now the woman's voice carried a different weight. Hurricane-Class Battleship, commissioned in secret for the past 37 years. I thought you might like to see what humans build in the dark. Keffar stared at the monster ship, dominating his tactical display. The energy readings were impossible. The weapons signatures defied Coalition physics. His 4 eyes narrowed as decades of assumed superiority crumbled in real time. How many more? He demanded. Chen's image smiled, and for the first time, Keffar understood why other species feared humans on a genetic level. It wasn't the smile of a civilized being. It was the expression of something that had climbed to the top of its food chain through violence and cunning. Admiral, she said softly. "You're about to find out why we never showed you our real teeth." The Tempest weapon systems came online with a sound like thunder rolling across space. Energy readings spiked beyond Coalition sensor capabilities. Around the Sol system, humanity's primitive ships began moving into attack formations with precision that spoke of decades of secret preparation. Kethvar realized, with growing horror, that everything the Coalition believed about humanity had been a carefully maintained lie. They weren't primitive survivors clinging to the galaxy's edge. They were apex predators who had been watching and learning, building weapons in the darkness while their enemies grew complacent. The greatest military force in galactic history was about to discover what happened when you cornered the species that had conquered their own world through endless warfare. The first salvo from the TCS Tempest rewrote 3 centuries of military doctrine in 17 seconds. Captain Hendricks watched from the Tempest Bridge as exotic matter streams erupted from the Hurricane-Class Battleship's primary weapons array. The technology humanity had reverse-engineered from Kepler artifacts, salvaged in secret from the ruins of their first destroyed colony, tore through space at 97% light speed. "Direct hit on Coalition Battle Group 7, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were witnessing. 3 heavy cruisers and their flagship are gone, sir. Complete molecular disruption." Admiral Chen stood behind the captain's chair, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the galaxy's most feared military force scramble to comprehend what were happening. The Coalition fleet numbered over 200 vessels, each one theoretically capable of devastating Earth's surface. They had arrived expecting to crush insects and instead found themselves facing a dragon. "Admiral Kethvar is broadcasting on all frequencies," the communications officer announced. "He's demanding to know what weapons we're using." "Tell him," Chen said quietly, "that we learned from the species he exterminated." The second wave of attacks came from seemingly empty space as humanity's other secret weapon revealed itself. Cloaked frigates, invisible to Coalition sensors, materialized throughout the enemy fleet. These ships were smaller but built with the same impossible technology: dark matter manipulation, quantum tunneling weapons, and armor that seemed to absorb and redirect energy rather than simply resist it. Captain Hendricks felt a grim satisfaction as he watched Coalition formations collapse into chaos. For 37 years, humanity's best minds had worked in absolute secrecy, building weapons designed specifically to counter every known Coalition technology. They had studied every recorded battle, analyzed every piece of wreckage, and prepared for this exact moment. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Lunar Base Construction Facility," the communications officer reported. "Admiral, they're asking for permission to launch the Aurora and the Maelstrom." Chen's expression hardened. 2 more Hurricane-Class battleships hidden in the Moon's industrial complex, their construction disguised as mining operations for decades. The Coalition had ignored humanity's expansion of lunar facilities, dismissing them as primitive resource extraction. They couldn't have been more wrong. "Permission granted," Chen said. "Tell them to target the Vorthak Command Cluster." It's time Admiral Kethvar understood exactly how outclassed he is. The battle unfolded across 3-dimensional space as humanity's hidden fleet emerged from concealment. Ships that had masked as cargo haulers and survey vessels suddenly revealed weapon systems that defied known physics. The Coalition's numerical advantage meant nothing when their opponents could phase through shields, manipulate matter at the subatomic level, and coordinate attacks through quantum-entangled communication networks. Commander ZYX-Ray's panicked voice crackled across the Coalition command channel. "Admiral, we've lost contact with Battle Groups 3, 7, and 12. The human ships are using some form of spatial manipulation. Our weapons are passing through them." Kethvar watched his seemingly invincible armada being systematically dismantled by technology that shouldn't exist. His tactical display showed Coalition vessels simply ceasing to exist as human weapons tore holes in reality itself. This wasn't just military defeat. It was a complete invalidation of everything the galaxy believed about technological progression. "How?" he demanded, his 4 eyes fixed on the impossible readings. How did they advance so far beyond Coalition science? The answer came from an unexpected source. Admiral Chen's image appeared on his command screen, but now she stood on the bridge of a ship that looked like it had been carved from crystallized starlight. Behind her, human officers worked at stations that seemed to respond to thought rather than touch. You want to know how, Admiral? Chen's voice carried the weight of centuries of hidden preparation. Every time your coalition destroyed a human colony, we salvaged the wreckage. Every time you demonstrated your superior technology, we studied it. Every time you showed us what was possible, we found ways to go further. The truth hit Kethvar like a physical blow. Humanity hadn't been struggling to survive in their backwater systems. They had been learning. Every diplomatic meeting, every technological demonstration, every casual display of coalition superiority had been feeding data to human scientists working in absolute secrecy. The Kepler Republic, Chen continued, her words cutting through the chaos of battle. You glassed their world to demonstrate your power, but you left their research facilities intact long enough for us to retrieve their quantum manipulation experiments. The Centauri Federation's bio-neural computing networks, the Vega colony's exotic matter research. Every civilization you destroyed taught us something new. Around them, the battle had become a massacre. Coalition ships that had dominated the galaxy for millennia were being torn apart by weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. The humans weren't just winning. They were demonstrating technological superiority that reduced the Coalition's most advanced vessels to primitive curiosities. You made a fundamental error, Chen said, her voice now carrying the cold certainty of absolute victory. You assumed that because we appeared primitive, we were primitive. You never considered that we might be hiding our true capabilities until the moment we needed them most. Captain Hendricks watched as the Aurora and Maelstrom emerged from lunar orbit, their impossible mass-defying gravity through pure technological superiority. 3 Hurricane-Class battleships now dominated local space, each one capable of sterilizing entire solar systems. The Coalition fleet, reduced from 200 vessels to fewer than 50 in less than an hour, began a desperate retreat. Ships that had entered the Sol system as conquerors fled like prey animals, their formations shattered and their morale completely broken. But Admiral Chen wasn't finished. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. The retreating Coalition fleet never made it past Mars. Admiral Chen watched from the Tempest Command Center as a carefully orchestrated trap closed around the enemy vessels. What the Coalition believed was empty space between Mars and Jupiter erupted with weapon signatures as humanity's final secret revealed itself. An entire hidden battle fleet constructed in the asteroid belt over 4 decades. Admiral, the Kraken-class destroyers are reporting full weapons lock, Commander Rodriguez announced. 87 vessels ready to engage. Chen nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's desperate gamble settling around her shoulders. They had bet everything on this moment, their resources, their secrecy, their survival. If the Coalition escaped to warn the galaxy about humanity's true capabilities, the war would become exponentially more difficult. Open a channel to all human vessels, she commanded. It's time to end this. The truth was more terrifying than even the Coalition realized. Humanity hadn't just built 3 Hurricane-Class battleships in secret. They had constructed an entire shadow navy hidden throughout the outer solar system and disguised as asteroid mining operations, research stations, and commercial waypoints. For generations, human children had grown up knowing that their species' survival depended on maintaining the greatest deception in galactic history. Admiral Kethvar's command ship, the Dominion's Edge, found itself surrounded by vessels that materialized from what his sensors had registered as empty space or natural objects. His bridge crew worked frantically to understand how their retreat had become another trap. The asteroid at coordinate 779, his sensor officer reported, mandibles clicking with terror. It's not an asteroid. It's a human ship nearly 6 kilometers long. The Leviathan-class dreadnought Kraken unveiled itself fully, its massive bulk having masqueraded as a wandering asteroid for 23 years. Its weapon systems came online with a sound of reality tearing, exotic matter cannons that could punch holes through moon-sized targets. Impossible, Kethvar whispered, watching his tactical display populate with dozens of previously undetected human vessels. How many ships do they have? The answer came as formations of human fighters erupted from concealed launch bays scattered throughout the asteroid belt. These weren't the primitive atmospheric fighters the Coalition had observed during their surveillance missions. They were space superiority craft built with the same impossible technology as the capital ships, capable of maneuvers that should have liquefied their pilots. Commander ZYXRA's voice cracked across the communication channel. Admiral, We're detecting over 300 human vessels of various classes. Their combined firepower exceeds our entire expeditionary force by a factor of 12. Chen smiled grimly as she watched the Coalition's remaining ships cluster together in a defensive formation that would have been impressive against conventional forces. Against humanity's Shadow Fleet, it was merely delaying the inevitable. Admiral Ketvar, she transmitted, her voice carrying across space to every Coalition vessel. You came here to demonstrate the galaxy's superiority over a primitive species. Instead, you've given us the perfect opportunity to demonstrate what humans are truly capable of. The second phase of the battle began with a precision that spoke of decades of planning. Human ships didn't simply attack. They dissected the Coalition fleet with surgical efficiency. Each enemy vessel was targeted by weapons specifically designed to counter its defensive systems. The Vorthek Empire's legendary energy shields proved useless against weapons that operated outside conventional physics. The Zephyrian Collective's adaptive armor became a liability when human exotic matter streams rewrote its molecular structure. Captain Hendricks monitored the battle from multiple perspectives, his command staff coordinating with vessels throughout the solar system. The scope of humanity's deception was staggering even to those who had lived it. They had turned their entire species into a covert military operation, maintaining the facade of primitive expansionists while building weapons that redefined warfare itself. So, Coalition Battle Group Omega is attempting to flee toward the outer system, Lieutenant Commander Park reported. Should we intercept? Negative, Chen replied. Let them see what's waiting beyond Neptune. The fleeing Coalition ships encountered humanity's ultimate secret. The Erebus Station, a massive weapons platform disguised as a deep space research facility for over 30 years. Its appearance on long-range sensors caused the remaining Coalition vessels to abandon any hope of escape. Admiral Ketvar finally understood the magnitude of humanity's deception. This wasn't just about hiding advanced technology. They had transformed their entire civilization into a military trap. Every human colony, every trade route, every diplomatic mission had been designed to maintain the illusion of weakness while building toward this moment. You're not just defending your system, he realized, his voice transmitted to Chen on an open channel. This is a declaration of war against the entire galaxy. Chen's response carried the certainty of absolute conviction. No, Admiral. This is a declaration that humanity will never again be underestimated. You taught us that survival requires strength, so we became stronger than anyone imagined possible. The final Coalition vessel surrendered simultaneously as they realized the futility of resistance. Surrounded by technology they couldn't comprehend, facing weapons that rendered their defenses meaningless, they made the choice that preserved what remained of their lives. But Admiral Chen wasn't interested in prisoners. She was interested in sending a message to every civilization in the galaxy. Humanity had hidden in plain sight for 3 centuries, learning and growing and preparing. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn what apex predators looked like when they stopped pretending to be prey. The war for galactic dominance had begun, and humanity intended to win it. The interrogation chamber aboard the TCS Tempest represented everything the galaxy had failed to understand about human psychology. Admiral Ketvar found himself facing not torture devices or intimidation chambers, but a simple room with comfortable furniture and what humans call coffee, a stimulant beverage that somehow made the situation more unsettling than any conventional threat. Admiral Chen sat across from him, her manner conversational despite the fact that his entire expeditionary force now existed as molecular debris scattered across the Sol system. Only 17 Coalition vessels remain intact, their crews imprisoned aboard humanity's impossible ships. You're wondering why you're still alive, Chen observed, pouring herself a cup of the dark liquid. The truth is, Admiral, we need you to deliver a message. Ketvar's 4 eyes studied the human woman who had orchestrated the complete destruction of the galaxy's most feared military force. Her calm demeanor was more disturbing than rage would have been. She spoke like someone discussing weather patterns rather than the extinction of entire fleets. What message? He asked, his scaled hide rippling with barely controlled anger. That humanity is no longer interested in being the galaxy's curiosity, Chen replied. For 300 years, we watched your coalition expand through conquest and intimidation. You've destroyed dozens of species who didn't meet your standards of technological advancement. Today, that ends. Through the chamber's viewport, Kefar could see the impossible sight of human ships moving through space like living creatures. Their hulls seemed to flow and adapt, their weapon systems emerging and retracting as needed. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was evolutionary engineering that suggested centuries of development beyond anything the Coalition possessed. The galaxy will unite against you, Kefar warned. When word of this reaches the core worlds, every species will recognize the threat you represent. Chen's smile held no warmth. Admiral, you still don't understand what you're dealing with. The galaxy won't have time to unite. She activated a holographic display that made Kefar's blood run cold. The projection showed star charts extending far beyond human space, with movement vectors and tactical assessment for every major Coalition stronghold. Humanity hadn't just built weapons in secret. They had been conducting intelligence operations throughout the galaxy for generations. While you were dismissing us as primitive, we were infiltrating your societies, Chen explained. Human traders, diplomats, researchers, and refugees spread throughout Coalition space, all of them gathering information, mapping defenses, identifying targets. The scope of humanity's infiltration was breathtaking. Every major Coalition world, every strategic resource, every fleet anchorage had been surveyed by humans posing as harmless civilians. The galaxy's openness and casual racism had made them blind to the intelligence operation happening under their noses. The Vorthak Empire controls 4 to 7 star systems, Chen continued, highlighting sections of the galactic map. Your military doctrine emphasizes centralized command structures and orbital defense platforms, very effective against conventional assault forces. She gestured, and the display showed detailed analyses of Vorthak defensive capabilities. Every shield generator, every weapon emplacement, every fleet deployment had been catalogued with scientific precision. Unfortunately for you, we specialize in unconventional warfare. Kefar watched as the display revealed humanity's true strategic position. Ships were already moving through hyperspace toward Coalition worlds, their departure time to coincide with the Sol system battle. While he had been focused on crushing primitive humans, a coordinated multi-system assault was already in motion. The Zephyrian Collective prides itself on technological adaptation, Chen said, shifting the display to show the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligence networks. Their quantum computers can process defensive solutions faster than any organic mind. Remarkable achievement. The hologram revealed something that made Kefar's scale stand on end. Human infiltrators hadn't just gathered intelligence. They had introduced subtle modifications to Zephyrian systems over decades. Quantum viruses designed to activate during specific tactical situations, turning the collective's greatest strength into a vulnerability. The beauty of your Coalition's arrogance, Chen observed, is that you never considered we might be more advanced than we appeared. Every time you demonstrated your technology, every time you shared scientific data in diplomatic exchanges, you were teaching us how to counter your advantages. Captain Hendricks entered the chamber, his expression grim. Admiral, we're receiving confirmation from Strike Group Alpha. The Vorthak homeworld's orbital defenses have been neutralized. Resistance was minimal. Chen nodded without surprise. And the Zephyrian primary networks. Offline as of 14 minutes ago. Their AI systems experienced cascade failures exactly as projected. Kefar realized with growing horror that humanity's attack on the Sol system hadn't been desperate defense. It had been the opening move in a carefully orchestrated campaign to destroy the Coalition before they could mount effective resistance. While his forces had been dying in human space, the real war was beginning across the galaxy. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? Admiral. How long have you been planning this? Chen leaned back in her chair, her eyes holding depth that spoke of centuries of careful preparation. Since the first human colony was destroyed, since we realized that survival required more than diplomacy or hiding, we've been planning this war since we understood that the galaxy views compassion as weakness and cooperation as vulnerability. The truth was more devastating than military defeat. Humanity hadn't just built weapons. They had rebuilt their entire civilization around the concept of eventual war with the galaxy's established powers. Every generation had contributed to the plan, sacrificing immediate comfort for long-term survival. You're going to finish what you started, Kefar realized. We're going to finish what you started, Chen corrected. The difference is that we're better at it than you ever imagined possible. Outside the viewport, human ships began disappearing into hyperspace, carrying humanity's war to every corner of Coalition territory. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when apex predators stopped hiding their true nature. 3 months after the Sol System battle, Admiral Chen stood in the ruins of the former Coalition High Command on Vorthak Prime. The massive complex, once the nerve center of galactic military power, had become a monument to humanity's methodical destruction of everything that had threatened their survival. The war hadn't lasted long because it hadn't really been a war. It had been an extermination campaign executed with surgical precision. Humanity's shadow fleets had struck simultaneously across 4 to 7 star systems, their attacks coordinated through quantum-entangled communication networks that rendered conventional military response impossible. Captain Hendricks approached through the rubble, his expression mixing satisfaction with exhaustion. "Admiral, the final Zephyr holdout at Kepler Station has surrendered. Their AI systems are completely compromised. They are requesting terms." Chen nodded, her attention focused on the holographic display showing the current galactic situation. Red markers indicated human-controlled systems, blue showed neutral territories, and the few remaining yellow dots represented Coalition forces that had managed to avoid complete annihilation. The map told the story of the most decisive military campaign in recorded history. "No terms," she said quietly. "Complete surrender or complete destruction." They chose this path when they decided humanity was expendable. The transformation of the galaxy had been breathtaking in its speed and totality. Humanity's infiltration networks, activated simultaneously across dozens of worlds, had crippled Coalition infrastructure before their fleets could respond. The Vorthak Empire's centralized command structure became a fatal weakness when human exotic matter weapons eliminated their leadership in coordinated strikes. The Zephyrian Collective's AI networks turned against themselves as decades of carefully planted quantum viruses activated simultaneously. Admiral Ketvar, released as promise to carry humanity's message to the galaxy, had watched his civilization crumble from a refugee ship fleeing toward the galactic rim. His warnings to neutral species had only accelerated their surrender, as few civilizations wanted to face the fate that had befallen the Coalition's military powers. "The Centaurian Republic is requesting a formal non-aggression pact," Hendricks reported. "They are offering technological exchanges in tribute." "Acceptable," Chen replied. "They never participated in attacks on human colonies. We have no quarrel with species that respect our right to exist." The distinction was important. Humanity's war hadn't been about conquest for its own sake. It had been about ensuring that no civilization would ever again consider humans safe targets for casual extermination. The galaxy's smaller species, previously terrified of Coalition dominance, found themselves in a universe where humanity offered protection rather than threat. Through the command center's shattered windows, Chen could see human ships patrolling Vorthak Prime's orbital space. The Hurricane-Class battleships had been joined by even larger vessels, continent-sized arcships that served as mobile bases for humanity's expansion into former Coalition territory. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just build better weapons, they built better civilizations. "Admiral," Commander Rodriguez announced from the communication station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. President Martinez wants a status report for the Galactic Council session." Chen smiled at the irony. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council had voted to authorize humanity's pacification by Coalition forces. Today, that same council was meeting to formally recognize human sovereignty over 37 star systems and acknowledge humanity's right to self-defense against future threats. "Tell the president that the galaxy has learned to respect human diplomacy," she said. "It took revealing our military capabilities, but the lesson appears to have been effective." The transformation hadn't been limited to military matters. Human technology, no longer hidden behind facade of primitiveness, was revolutionizing everything from transportation to medicine. Species that had dismissed human innovation found themselves desperately seeking trade agreements to access technological advances that made Coalition science look antiquated. Captain Hendricks pulled up another display showing refugee populations throughout human space. Millions of beings from destroyed Coalition worlds had requested asylum in human territory. Their former oppressors had become their protectors, offering sanctuary to those who posed no threat to human security. "The irony is remarkable," Hendricks observed. We spent centuries being treated as primitive refugees ourselves. Now we're offering the same compassion to our former enemies. Chen's expression softened slightly. That's what makes us different from them. We remember what it feels like to be vulnerable. The difference is that we made sure we'd never be vulnerable again. A new holographic display activated, showing construction projects throughout human space. Massive orbital facilities, research stations, and defense platforms that dwarfed anything the Coalition had built. Humanity was consolidating their victory by demonstrating that their technological supremacy wasn't limited to weapons. They could build anything better than anyone else in the galaxy. Status report from the lunar construction yards. Hendricks continued. The Titan-class world ships are ahead of schedule. First launch in 8 months. Chen nodded approvingly. The world ships represented humanity's final answer to galactic threats, self-sufficient vessels capable of supporting millions of people indefinitely. If the galaxy ever again posed an existential threat to humanity, these ships would ensure their survival and enable retaliation from anywhere in known space. Admiral Rodriguez called incoming transmission from Admiral HFY. He is requesting permission to enter human space under diplomatic immunity. Granted, Chen replied immediately. I'm curious to hear what he has to say. HFY's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from a small diplomatic vessel at the edge of human territory. The proud Coalition admiral looked older, his scales dulled by months of witnessing his civilization's collapse. But his 4 eyes held a new expression, not defeat, but understanding. Admiral Chen, he began, his voice carrying hard-earned respect. I come with a message from the surviving Coalition leadership. We acknowledge that our assessment of humanity was inadequate. We request the opportunity to establish peaceful relations with your species. Chen studied the alien leader who had arrived at Sol System intending genocide and was now pleading for coexistence. What assurances can you offer that humanity will never again be threatened by Coalition forces? Complete demilitarization of our remaining fleets, HFY replied without hesitation. Recognition of human sovereignty over all claimed territories, and a formal apology for 3 centuries of dismissing your species as inferior. Accepted, Chen said simply. Welcome to the new galactic order, Admiral, one where humanity is no longer anyone's prey. As HFY's transmission ended, Chen turned to look out at the stars beyond Vorthak Prime. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and learning. The galaxy had been taught a fundamental lesson about underestimating those who appeared weak or primitive. Humanity had finally revealed their true nature to the universe, and the universe would never be the same.